Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the July 21st to 22nd Godfest that is debuting on Saturday, along with the initial release of Ricci. So, as a whole, this Godfest is actually quite lackluster, simply because A, it's not a super Godfest, which has strong speculation of actually occurring in the near future, and B, there are only 17 6/7-star Godfest exclusives being featured instead of what is normally 2021. So, if we have the exact same rolling rates and things are not dramatically amplified, which they're most likely not, this Godfest would have the lowest rolling rate of a 6 or 7-star Godfest exclusive since the inception of the Rare Machine renewal. Now, my thought process is that Gung was trying to bait players into this because of the debut of Ricci, but hopefully for those who are either more informed or check the rolling rates will realize that this is actually one of the possibly the worst Godfest to actually roll in. So, with that being said, it's still worth listening because I'm going to at least review the cards as well as Ricci herself, who is quite powerful and exciting. So, as you can see here, there are only 17 6/7-star Godfest exclusives featured and 16 that are not featured. So, like I said, normally speaking, we have 21 featured and then I think 11-ish not featured. So, this is a big disparity compared to before. And one, I guess, amusing piece of information is that Typhon, Reune, and Sylvie have been not featured for the second time in a row. It's not that big a deal, because to be fair, so many things are not featured anyways. So, Ricci is a brand new card, and they are quite exciting and very powerful because they do so many different things. They can kind of just wear so many different hats and fulfill different roles and niches on various teams. So their active skill is one of the most complex in the game in the sense that it combines 4 different elements. You have an orb unlock component. You have a 6 elemental board changer, so that's 5 colors plus hearts. You have a color absorb void, so basically if they're absorbing, say, fire, you can ignore that. They also have a damage absorb void, which is a Fujin style active skill, so that means Sopdet and Vishnu, Hair Dragon, and so on and so forth. So you're combining all 4 of these components into a single active skill for a 30-turn cooldown. And you might think, wow, 30 turns, that's quite terrible, but it's not as bad as you may think. Their leader skill provides 4 times attack for all cards and 25% damage reduction when hitting 7 or more combos, which is doable from a given board on 6x5. A 6x5 board has statistically 7.5 combos on average, I would say, so you should be able to at least hit this aspect every single time unless the board has a strange distribution. In addition to that, we have 4 times attack when hitting 4 of the following orb types. So basically, if you match any 4 of 5 fire, water, wood, light, and dark orbs, you get another 4 times damage. So that's 16 times damage, and 16 squared, if you're really interested, is 256, if I'm not mistaken. Math don't fail me. And then they also provide 2 additional seconds of orb movement time. So they've got a multi-component active, a multi-component leader skill. And this gives them a lot of flexibility, especially as a leader skill because they're able to pair with other cards more favorably. Yes, double Ricci is a thing, but it's not necessarily the greatest thing, and I'll explain more why in a moment. So, in terms of their awakenings, they have they have full bind immunity, which is kind of standard, but they have 2 skill charge awakenings, and that is important for charging up this 30-turn active skill. They have a single skill boost, lock, time extend, double 7 combo, pretty standard stuff otherwise. So they're very powerful because they're basically incorporating 4 different aspects and a Fujin style active skill with a board unlock and board changers. So for the most part, it's going to be almost impossible, I think, to use all 4 components at the same time. But at the bare minimum, you're getting at least 2 useful components. And the bare minimum would be orb unlock and board changer, because when you unlock the orbs, you can basically remove all locked hazard orbs and you get a nice fresh board to play around with. You also are guaranteed a minimum 6 combos because you get at least 3 of each element, as well as the ability to heal. So a lot of teams can definitely take advantage of a rainbow board changer, as well as the fact that, well, it's an orb unlock, so it's always going to have relevance. So if we were to compare and contrast this active skill against something that's already available for orb unlock and board changer, it's basically Raigen's active skill. And Raigen has an 8-turn cooldown, so remember, we have a 30-turn cooldown already working with, so let's try and keep in mind why this is the case. But on the other hand, if we look at damage absorb void, which is a Fujin style active skill, the most pure form of that is Lu, who has an 18-turn cooldown. He provides just damage absorb void, nothing else. So that's 18 turns. So now we're going to be combining the 8-turn Raigen plus the 18 turn of Lu, and that is a 26 turn cooldown. So if we just stopped right there in a 26 turn cooldown, that's actually quite reasonable, because if you compare it to something like Uruka, who has the same board changer and damage absorb void, they are a 24 turn cooldown. So you're basically paying two extra turns for the orb unlock. That's actually not too bad of a thing, because you're guaranteed a board changer. You don't have to worry as much about a given board. Now, if we tack on now the color absorb void, we're basically spending 4 extra turns now at this point to add color absorb void into the mix. Like I said, you're not going to be using all 4 at the same time, but the fact that you have this amount of flexibility is tremendously valuable and allows you to actually overcome a lot more spawns and only have to bring 1 active skill instead of multiple different subs to address so many different problems. But this 30 turn cooldown is significantly more manageable when you have this skill charge awakening. So each skill charge awakening will provide you with 1 turn of personal haste when you match all 5 colors. And in the case of Ricci, you're going to be matching all 5 colors for the most part anyways. So with 2 skill charges, you're basically charging up at a rate of 3 turns every match. So that 30 turn cooldown can potentially become 10 turns, and that is tremendously powerful. Now we have what essentially amounts to the fastest charging Fujin style active skill in the game, if I'm not mistaken, if you can hit 10 consecutive turns of skill charge, just because it's going to charge things up quicker. And remember, even if you don't get to use the Fujin style ability or the color absorb ability, you still have a reliable board changer. And remember, like I said, the orb unlock at board changer is 8 turns, so you're paying 10 turns for that, but you have all these extra benefits if you need them as well. So this active skill is actually incredibly high value, and it's amazing, but the only big drawback is that it can't be used as an inherit as effectively, because as an inherit, it's 30 turn cooldown, and the card you inherited on top of will not have a skill charge most likely, so you're not taking advantage. And to be fair, if it did have skill charge, you'd probably be using Ricci anyways, because that means you're using a rainbow style team for the most part. So incredibly high value active skill, but you need to make sure you hit those rainbow activation every single turn. But again, it's combining so many different aspects, and it's reducing the need to have so many different types of subs on your team. As a leader, their leader skill, like I said, provides 16 times personal damage, 25% damage reduction, and 2 bonus seconds of orb movement time. However, you are having to hit any 4 of fire, water, wood, light, and dark. So that color clause activation is a little problematic. You can run into orb trolling, you can run into consistency issues, you can't use void damage penetration effectively really at all. But with all that sounding quite negative, it's still actually quite a powerful leader skill, because he's providing a nice chunk of damage. She's providing a nice chunk of damage. She's got great base awakenings, and she's a useful card to have for the most part. So when you are team building Ricci, you want to obviously make sure you have full color coverage, because you need to activate with that, as well as tapping into the skill charge. And you just basically want to sprinkle in as needed, like follow-up attacks, delays, shields, spikes, bind, awoken, bind, clearing. And for the most part, you want to prioritize cards with 7 combo awakenings or relevant killer awakenings to have higher effective damage, because the main issue is with rainbow-based teams, your ability to concentrate your damage is lower. So, for instance, let's say we use double Ricci. That's 256 times, if I'm not mistaken, compared to double Yusuke. Both have the same effective personal damage because they both have double 7 combo. But Yusuke is able to spike significantly harder without using a carrot or a burst damage inherit, because they can use a bi-elemental board changer and basically like heavily stack light orbs and do significantly more damage, as well as having their whole team being all light based as well. So with that in mind, Yusuke is able to have significantly higher damage without the need of a spike, because you just use a board changer, or you just have a board with more light orbs and you can do more effective damage overall because you're more concentrated. So these multicolored teams do have to rely more on a spike, generally speaking, for more durable spawns, because you have to use usually a rainbow style board changer, and the orb distribution is not as potent. You're not necessarily hitting as hard overall. So that is definitely a bit of a drawback, but it's still very much workable. Now, you can use double Ricci, but I honestly feel that it's a little better to pair her with other leaders, because you can take advantage of the more aspects. So for the most part, you have to match those 4 elements, so that is a drawback, but that means you can pair with Joyra and Yuki and not actually have to match any more orbs than you normally would have if you were playing just Ricci by themselves, because their activation requirements require less colors by comparison. Furthermore, this plus 2 seconds of orb movement time is really not needed twice. Like 4 bonus seconds to move orbs is excessive. You don't need that much movement time. Like, I'd say with 10 seconds on 6x5, that should generally be more than enough to max combo a given board. So we're trying to get to the point where it's becoming excessive and unneeded. So by swapping out that extra benefit for something else can be more meaningful. So if you pair with something like Yuki, you have the same damage reduction, almost the same attack multiplier, but instead of time extend, you gain access to 3 times recovery, which is incredibly powerful and useful at that point because, well, you did not have a recovery multiplier at that time. On the other hand, if you pair with Joyra, you still keep that orb movement time, but then you have a 7x6 board. And with a 7x6 board, you are able to essentially combo much higher. Yes, your effective multiplier is lower, but you can max combo. You can get significantly more combos squeezed in, possibly even more of your ideal colors. And 7x6 provides you lots of a bigger safety net overall. So yes, double Ricci can work, but I feel that pairing of Yuki or pairing of Joyra is much better overall. So it is quite an exciting leader. Like, you do have options and flexibility, and you basically can cater yourself to the dungeon at hand, as well as the fact that your subs are what you need to bring. They're flexible. You're not restricted by typing restrictions, unlike, say, blue and green Sonya teams. As a sub, you are able to use them as a sub for sure, and they are quite powerful, but you have to remember that you want to make sure you tap into that skill charge awakening, because if you don't, you have a 30 turn cooldown, which is a lot harder to manage. And another thing to keep in mind is that if you are able to tap into skill charge, there's a strong chance that maybe you should be just using Ricci as a leader, or even a friend's leader if you don't have one yourself, because, well, a rainbow color team tends to be very effective for Ricci style. So you may not necessarily be able to tap into the skill charge as easily on other teams. Perhaps something like Edward can work well because Edward wants to use skill charge anyway, so Ricci's not necessarily a weird fit on the team overall. But again, as long as you tap into skill charge, Ricci can be a very powerful sub. So this list here is kind of just my own personal list. Don't take it as absolute truth. Use a grain of salt as a starting point, whatever you may be, and just give you kind of a bit of a general idea of how powerful or potent cards can be. So Ricci naturally debuts at S because, well, they're so powerful. They're a great leader, great sub, amazing active skill. And then I've brought down Amino and Skald, and I'll explain the reasons why. But from this Godfest, from what is available and featured, like, it's got a reasonable roster overall. But remember, you are missing basically 4 or 5 cards compared to before, so the odds of rolling something good is naturally a little lower than beforehand. So Amino goes from S to A, and the reason is because Amino is still an amazingly potent card for playing through Arena 3, but the focus of the game is still not as much on Arena 3 as it used to be. Like, yes, Arena 3 still can give killers, but it's more just a stepping stone to start clearing Alt Arena, where Amino will not be able to do. Amino has great ability to have good burst. They can use void damage penetration. They can damage control through absorption spawns, so they are good in Arena 3. But the thing is, like, so many other leaders can clear Arena 3 at this point in time as well, so the actual need is, I guess, a little lower overall. Like, they definitely can clear, like, medium to, like early to mid-game content, maybe some end-game content possibly. Like, it's still strong, but maybe with a new evolution, they'll gain more relevancy. On the other hand, Skald, when she was first released, was amazingly powerful. Like, she had double 7 combo and a follow-up attack awakening, and at that point in time, that was incredibly rare. I think maybe only Amatsu is the only one who can kind of compete against her, but, well, Amatsu was incredibly rare, hardly anyone had her, so Skald was quite unique and powerful. But now, over time, we've gained access to so many more double 7 combo follow-up attack cards. It's almost become kind of like the template of what Gung-Ho releases as a new card. So Skald has lost that edge of being niche and basically unique. And at this point in time, Cotton basically eclipses Skald in pretty much every way, shape, and form because she's more flexible, more color coverage, has a much shorter base cooldown. Because Skald's tri-elemental board changer is not that helpful for most teams. Very few teams can capitalize on blue and green orbs, as well as hearts to heal. So Cotton's 5-turn base cooldown is significantly better compared to 9, as well as Cotton's base skill possibly not breaking activation requirements for other teams, such as like Yusuke, for instance. So Skald has lost that extra relevancy, and then the fact that her water orb enhanced awakenings don't have much merit just means she is carrying some dead awakenings. She's still good, but she's nowhere near as elite as she used to be, and she needs to be reflected accordingly. So like I said, overall, this Godfest, like, the lineup is reasonable, but the thing is, you are missing so many other cards, so the chances of rolling something good should be lower, assuming everything keeps the same rolling rates. Now, this may sound a little bit like a broken record if you follow all my videos, but it's still worth mentioning all these points for Godfest reviews, because with the Godfest exclusive trading post, or the Monster Exchange system, you are able to essentially trade in 4 6-star cards for a rare, desirable collab card of your choice. So this has kind of become the norm of how we play Puzzle & Dragons. We want to stock up on these 6-star cards, trade in for a rare collab card, which had a terrible rolling rate anyways. So this is why you want to try and wait for a Godfest that has high rolling rates, because, well, you want to basically tap into the fact that you can get basically any 6-star, trade them in for something more valuable. Now, again, sounds a little bit redundant, but Pantheons and former 5-star Godfest exclusive highlights rates are dropped off during Godfest to make room for the 6-star Godfest, 6/7-star Godfest exclusives. Basically, it means that their rolling rates will be on par of a 6-star Godfest exclusive, so technically you are able to roll them more easily outside of Godfest, but that is not a recommended course of action because, well, you want the 6-star Godfest exclusives for the Monster Exchange system. Now, in terms of what is featured, this is not an exhaustive list, and you should always be checking what is currently available in the official lineup that is displayed in game. Rolling rates will also be displayed at the same time, but I just kind of want to highlight the Celtic Pantheon, which is something that hasn't been touched for a while. So Bridget basically is famous for her triple Machine Killer Awakenings. It gives her 27 times effective damage against Machine type spawns, but the problem is Machine Goemon comes with 1 Machine Killer, and they're much more efficient on red row farming teams because, well, you have multiple Machine Goemons, you have enough effective damage against machines anyways, and you've got a much stronger base active skill and better awakenings as well as the fact that all Celtic cards have terrible base stats, which can be a little harder to justify in certain scenarios. And this is most relevant on Aeth, who is often used on a lot of teams because they have 3 7 combo awakenings. 777 combo means you have 8 times effective damage against all spawns, provided you hit 8 or more combos, so she can be used on teams like Yusuke, Edward, and any combo-based team for the most part. But the main problem is her low-weighted stats and somewhat of a lackluster base active skill means she is not going to be as desirable as other options potentially. Still strong, but just maybe falling behind by comparison. Dagda is pretty horrible overall because he has 5 TPAs, and we all know that TPAs are not that great, unfortunately, so kind of awkward. Yes, you can unlock orbs, and you can remove hazards, as well as 3 turns of Awoken Bind Clearing, but quite a low value active skill, and the fact that you got 5 TPAs and have very little synergy overall is challenging to overcome. Lu is probably going to be the most universally beneficial card from this Pantheon because they have that pure Fujit style active skill, basically no secondary effect. So you can deal with Sopdet and Vishnu with great ease. But the thing is, with no secondary effect, it can be a little harder to customize it for your team, as well as not having any extra benefit overall. And lastly, we come to a girl whose name I can't pronounce, but she changes the enemy spawn's attribute to dark. So for dark cheesing teams, which doesn't really exist, that can be helpful, but it can act as a pseudo damage and burst for light-based teams. Basically, you get 2 times more damage. So in theory, you can do that, do a gemstone. You technically can have more damage than a gemstone alone, of course, but it's really not that needed, I feel, overall. Taking up an active skill slot for just 2 times damage is not that great overall. And then in terms of the 5-star former Godfest exclusives being featured, Sari is the one with the most relevancy because she has a follow-up attack and at least a tri-elemental board changer, which is not a terrible thing. But the problem is 5-star Godfest exclusives have generally been power creeped out of relevancy. So, like I already mentioned with the Godfest exclusive trading booster Monster Exchange system, collabs tend to be where the most powerful cards exist, but generally speaking, a newer player has more benefit rolling in a Godfest because it provides more baseline value for your monster box. Collabs provide more niche applications, but remember, if you have enough Godfest exclusive, you can trade in for that powerful leader. You don't have to actually roll in the collab itself. So for the most part, collabs are definitely better than they were before, but it all depends on your own individual needs of whether or not you actually need to roll in collab or need to roll in Godfest to kind of fill out your monster box overall. So, in conclusion, this Godfest does really feel like a pretty big trap because, well, you are missing out on significantly more Godfest exclusives compared to other ones in the past. So I honestly feel like Gung-Ho's kind of just tempting us with Ricci's debut, as well as bad rolling rates to make players waste their magic stones, and then probably drop a Super Godfest in the near future. In Japan, they had a Super Godfest after Ricci's debut within less than 2 weeks, so that may not necessarily be a far assumption to make for North America. So let me know what you think about this Godfest in the comments below. Do you plan on rolling? Do you think Ricci is overpowered or overrated? Hopefully all a Mantastic day. I wish you all the best of luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.